Chad, Mali, and Niger have recently experienced severe flooding, with residents navigating submerged streets and enduring significant hardships. Approximately 6.6 million people are affected by the monsoon's annual devastation in West and Central Africa, which has become increasingly familiar. This season's torrential rains in the Sahel, bordering the Sahara, have caused dam failures and flooded desert towns, resulting in over 1,460 fatalities and worsening existing humanitarian crises in one of the world's poorest regions.
It's really complicated for us. We don't know what to do. We are forced to move, to find shelter somewhere. We've become climate refugees. I've become a climate refugee, and we're struggling with it. If only the authorities could find a solution in advance, so that every year it wasn't just water, 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 and floods. This year it has gone beyond the usual. It has exceeded expectations, but we're holding on, we're in it. Don't forget, we're here.
The urgency for improved flood preparedness is evident, as floods are the most common and costly disasters in Africa. Economic losses linked to disasters, particularly from floods, storms, and drought, surged by 52% from 2010 to 2019 compared to the previous 3 decades, according to the World Meteorological Organization.
Yes, I mean, if you monitor the West African monsoon system, you will notice that over the past 15 years or so, the West African monsoon system has been extremely active. That means that we have had torrential rainfall, rainfall surpluses almost every year happening in West Africa during the summer season, especially between July and September.
The conflict-ridden and food-insecure Sahel faces rising flood threats due to changing climate patterns, increased rainfall intensity, and poor urban planning, as highlighted in a 2021 study in the Journal of Hydrology. A year after that study, West and Central Africa experienced one of the worst seasonal flooding disasters on record, affecting over 8.5 million people across 20 countries.
Il y a eu, n'est-ce pas, comme impact des maisons tombées.
There have been impacts, haven't there? Houses have collapsed, bridges have given way, roads have completely been destroyed, and vehicles have been swept away, especially in the northern regions. And all these incidents have also led to loss of human lives. These are the most devastating consequences we've seen during this season.
Ce sont les conséquences les plus néfastes qu'on a vues pendant cette saison.
As parts of Europe dealt with record floods, West Africa's monsoon inflicted its usual destruction. Intense heat over the Sahara, among other factors, shifted the monsoon belt northward, resulting in heavy rains in typically arid regions. While some areas experienced drier conditions, the months of July to September recorded among the 5 wettest periods in 30 years for much of Niger, Chad, and parts of western Mali.
It was the river that drove us out of our fishing camp. We lost everything, and now all of my grandchildren are all sick.
Social media was filled with images of inundated roads and damaged infrastructure, particularly in Niger's UNESCO-listed town of Agadez. Mali declared a national disaster and postponed the academic year as schools became shelters for displaced families. These flooding events are increasingly predictable. Climate experts agree that global warming has heightened the frequency and intensity of rainfall, while West Africa is undergoing a long-term trend of wetter monsoons.
These systems and approaches are working in some areas. We also have the responsibility to talk about like the constraints more than we do areas where perhaps they're not ready to be developed, and then we can work towards developing the enabling environments before we allocate resources to try it out. So we're at a critical moment, I'd say, and I think the West Africa and Central Africa case exemplifies that, because the forecasts were there. The forecast data indicated enhanced rainfall is very likely.
Despite predictions of heavier rainfall, many communities were caught unprepared. In 2023, international organizations, including the World Meteorological Organization, launched an action plan to enhance early warning systems for natural disasters in Africa, which has the lowest access rates globally. However, vulnerable communities often lack the resources to effectively respond to these warnings. In Chad, over 40% of the population lives in poverty, and the situation is compounded by the presence of 2 million refugees residing in basic camps. Experts emphasize the need to address the constraints faced by communities in utilizing early warning systems, highlighting the importance of pre-agreed plans, funding, and community engagement. The ongoing situation in West and Central Africa underscores the critical need for effective disaster preparedness and response, especially given that forecasts indicated the likelihood of severe rains.